Namaste, yogis. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga Podcast, episode 69. On the final day of 2024, I'm Happy Jack, live from my hometown of Muskoka, Ontario, Canada. And I'm here live with
your homie, Happy Hannah.
my homie. Nice. We're here.
I don't actually know what it means.
Homie is like friend, like homie. Yeah, my buddy.
Since you mentioned the home.
Yeah, we made it. 2024 complete. That's actually the first complete year that we've been leading the podcast through the entire year, because we started in the fall of 2023. So now we got like a year and a third under our belt and getting ready to jump into 2025. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of celebrations, a lot of learning, a lot of growth, a lot of insights. I certainly find I learn a lot. Getting coached by you, Hanna, no, but also from the yogis here and sharing their ideas. But really want to just start by saying thank you. Thank you to all of you that are a part of this community. Some of you, warriors are here, yoga warriors here regularly with us in Zoom. And just a part of making this happen. And as we know, there's some others out there who, although we don't see them in Zoom, we know they're listening, and we find out so I got to do a shout out. I already mentioned briefly, my dear friend, Tim, my buddy, like my best friend growing up, who he now lives way up north, but his parents are still here, of course. And I got to see his mom at the Christmas Eve church service. And when I showed up to the church service, which was the same day as our last podcast episode, and right away she's like, "Jack, where's your Christmas hat?" She had already watched the episode, so she's right on top of it. And so it's really nice to know that there's friends and family and loved ones out there that are enjoying the conversation as well. And I mentioned,
asked for your hat is because you wore a Christmas hat last time we were recording.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. For those who didn't know that, I was wearing a Christmas hat last time. And she had some really nice words to share about the podcast, and very, very nice words to share about you, Hanna. She was just gushing about you. She's like, my God, and sincerely, she's like, wow, your partner, Hanna, in yoga, she's so deep, she's so wise. She's like, I listen to you, Jack, but I really listen to Hanna. Like everything that comes out of her mouth, she's like, you can really feel the experience of the things that you've been through in life. And then we were talking about old souls. Her son Tim, my old buddy, is an old soul, and you can feel when certain people have a certain level of maturity, whether it's from life experience in this life or perhaps a previous life, if we're open to that idea. But it's I wanted to publicly share that acknowledgement. Thank you to you, Mrs. B, and thank you to you, Hanna, for bringing the proper wisdom to this conversation.
Thank you for beautiful feedback, but I'm assuming that things we say resonate depending on all kinds of things. So I'm happy to hear. Thank you, Mrs. B.
Yeah. And it's, what I acknowledge her for, and all of you for who are listening and tuning into this, is like, there's so many different things that we could be occupying our time with. Right. And some of them are more empowering than others. But I actually remember back in the days when Tim and I were buddies, what we would tune into, like Friends, the sitcom Friends, or the sitcom Beverly Hills 90210, those kind of things. And so now knowing that we can tune in and catch a podcast episode where perhaps people are having a little bit more deeper, more meaningful, a little bit more purposeful conversation. It's a benefit that we have with this new technology. So if anything, we're committed to keeping this podcast going just for you, Mrs. B. But no, we love it, and we're gonna keep it going. Are you in, Hanna?
I'm in 100%, especially coming up we know that I will be the sole force carrying the podcast forward when you travel. So,
Yeah, I'll share more about that in a moment for the next couple episodes. Um, Something else I wanted to say about that though before we move on, there's really value in trying new things. And I think I might have mentioned on the last podcast how my mom had invited me, or maybe it was one of our community calls, but my mom had invited me to go line dancing, right? And there's no cell in my no not one part of my body that has any interest. No disrespect, but like there's just would not catch my attention. But because my mom invited me and I want to spend as much quality time as I can with her, I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. Monday, 9:30 a.m. I'm in. I'm free. And actually, because we must have mentioned it on the podcast, yeah, because Mrs. B showed up at line dancing, so she was there, and we had a blast. Actually, my sister came, so my mom, my sister, my old buddy's mom, and we're just like laughing and having fun. And some people really got it. My sister Maria, I guess she did dance lessons as a kid, so you can see the value. Like as yogis, if we consistently show up at our yoga mat or show up in our teaching, we develop a certain level of competence. And then when we show up for the first time, like I did for line dancing, there's a little bit of fumbling, a little bit of stumbling. But the main thing was having fun. But it was cool. Some of the really simple sequences I figured out, and some of them I didn't. Like, but again, just like being able to laugh and be playful. They'd call out pony, and I mean, I just couldn't not laugh when the teacher calls out pony. Like I'm supposed to know, what am I supposed to do? Pony or rocking chair. But it's good to move our bodies in different ways, and I felt that, aside from the playfulness, I felt that I was able to, I don't want to maybe not say like a deeply spiritual experience, but a mindful experience, like a meditative experience. So next time, Hannah, you might just have to check out line dancing.
do I need a cowboy hat?
One of the guys had cowboy boots.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
you don't, it's not necessary though. You just show up as you are, just like yoga, right? No expectations, open mind, open heart, and just show up. And the teacher was great. In fact, I could reflect on that for us as yogis and yoga teachers. There's just so much value in being present with our students. Like in fact, she was a little bit scattered, and because she talked about how she had her granddaughter over and didn't get a lot of sleep, but because she was so playful and fun and engaging and made eye contact with us and like genuinely cared, called out my name like 4 times, like as if to say, speaking to us, not just calling out the pose on autopilot, but actually speaking to the people who were there, knowing that I'm new and out of my element, and saying things like, because she gave a compliment to the class, and then I turned over to Mrs. B, and I'm like, she wasn't talking to me. And then the teacher heard that, and she's like, yes, I was, Jack. I was talking directly to you. And so it was just like, it was a dialogue. It wasn't a preaching. It wasn't a lecture. It was a dialogue. And that's the opportunity we have as yogis and yoga teachers. That's yoga. That's connection.
Yeah, and it makes the yoga class or the offering come alive when everyone's in it. It's a way to involve everyone in the project of that class rather than creating like isolated experiences. And we still have our individual experience, but there's a sense of community. And I think that's something powerful to contemplate on in this time of the loneliness pandemic, how, or epidemic. It's like, seems like we're more and more isolated because of technology, which, so, technology is great and it can also lead to um, isolation and loneliness. And so when we create offerings, we can find ways to include the people in the room.
Yeah. And it was just a great reminder for me to realize as much as we love yoga, as much as we're gonna, promoting and celebrating the power, the transformative practice of yoga, it's nice to remind myself that actually we can create this in other environments, in other settings as well. This teacher, this dance teacher in my old schoolhouse, like it's a 2-room schoolhouse. We had grade 1, 2, 3, 4 in one classroom and grade 5, 6, 7, 8 in the other classroom. That's how we went to school back in the 80s. And so to know that she in this little room could create this with just like, a lot of senior citizens and just a, a motley crew of people who came together. And in the same day, so like after the line dancing, I actually had to leave early, a little bit before it ended, had some other appointments, and then I ended up at a CrossFit class with my sister. She wanted to work out, and that was also a new experience. I've done a couple, over the years, but it's very different. Like we did what's called these, sounds like a funny word, we did these snatches. And so it's basically you take the barbell and basically you're doing a squat and an overhead press. And we just did like a whole bunch of these, and it's a very kind of technical move, but doing something, doing something kind of new. Yeah, the point I wanted to make was this, there was 10 of us there, and there was just such a community feeling. Like me and you do it, it's timed, so you do it as quickly as you can. For me, I'm new and I really want to do my form properly, so I took it slow. So me and my sister were among the last ones to finish, and as we're finishing, everybody else is like standing around us, cheering us on. You got this, great technique, you know what I mean? And it's like, so it's just nice to know that we can create this yogic type experience, yes, within the yoga studio, but also in many different environments.
Yeah, and that's why I think that yoga isn't, there's not like we have one yoga life and then the rest of our lives. It is a way to, it's a lifestyle, it's a culture, a,
Yeah,
a philosophy that
yeah,
you can see, like you're saying, you can see it everywhere in your life.
yeah. I can. It's in fact like I'm noticing I these updates I have today. I'm reflecting on life experiences I had, but I'm really seeing it through the lens of like how can we see this through the lens of the yoga teachings of the yoga philosophy. And so also a couple days ago, my brother invited me to go play hockey, just a men's shinny. Shinny means like just recreational fun game. And actually there was a couple of kids there. There was a really young kid there. There was a 10-year-old, and he was a superstar. Like he was, I mean, of course I was bigger and faster, but like he was more skilled. And we were sitting on the bench, and I'm like, "How old are you?" And he's like, "I'm 10 years old." And I'm like, "What team do you play for?" "Oh, the AAA North Central Predators, like really super high level." And his dad was the goalie. And after the game, I was like kind of saying to his dad, I'm like, "Wow, I'm so impressed with your son. Like he's a superstar." And his dad said that not that we condone lying, but in a fun way, he said he lied about his son's age. When he was 3 years old, he lied and said the son was 5, so he could start playing hockey, at some basic level. And what I got out of that is the value of getting ourselves in proximity to people who are playing at a higher level, right? So not getting caught up on the fact of lying. Of course, that's not a yogic thing, but I mean, I might have done the same for my child to get him into an environment. But the point being that when we are with people who are at another level, like I got better at dancing because I was with dancers. I got better at weightlifting because I was with weightlifters. Now this kid is getting much better at hockey because he's playing with people at a higher level. And that's I guess that's something that we attempt to do, Hanna, and we attempt to create. And that's the nice thing, truthfully, about this community. There's people on this call who are at a higher level than us in different areas, whether it's in business, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in our spiritual progress. And I think it's really nice to surround ourselves with people that cause us to raise our standards, not simply feel, I don't want to feel like, oh, I'm the best, I'm the most advanced. I want to be around people better than me, and so that's why we got you on the team, Hannah, to help me raise my standard.
That's why I didn't give me the boot yet. Well, that's lucky for me
I'm
that
kidding.
you consider me advanced. I would like to know in what area exactly.
Knitting. No,
Yes.
yeah, and another like there's just all these yogic philosophy principles that I'm seeing that show up in life. There's one of the bhakti principles. You're still laughing. What are you laughing about now?
So smooth, Jack. Knitting. And then you go back to your notes.
Well, do you want me to go on about all the things that you're more advanced?
I didn't know you were looking to learn how to knit, but I look forward to teaching you.
Yeah, I haven't picked that one up yet. One
Yeah,
of these.
now that you're line dancing, you might as well start knitting.
Yeah, if I can see I guess making clothing that I could wear, I could see, living a simple life out in the nature. I could see value in that. In the line dancing, I like that I'm moving my body.
Yeah.
And good music. We did the YMCA. YMCA. I don't think that was line dancing, but I think we just did that for fun. And some Bob Seger. Just take that old record off the shelf. Old time of rock and roll. But no, what I wanted to say, the bhakti, you wanted to say something, go.
I was wondering if your dad is going to join the line dancing once he gets a new hip.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He's definitely going to be more mobile and active. I don't know that he'll take up line dancing, but you can't predict the future. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
So this bhakti principle of take no offense, like not being offended by what others say, and the reason I bring it up, my mom and I,
Did you get an opportunity to practice that?
no,
No.
no, but you might right now.
Let's see if I can put that bhakti principle into action right here live.
So here's how it goes. My mom and I were hanging out every day, right? And I forget how it came up, but we were talking about this Finnish food called piraka. And yeah, I don't know how it came up, but anyways, my mom, she somehow thought of the fact that like she had taught you and Aaron, and was showing you guys how to make them, and you were having fun doing it. And all of a sudden, my mom, like, she just couldn't stop laughing. Like, she's just like hysterically laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing about? And she said, it's so funny to watch Hanna make pirakas. And she's like, but she said, she explicitly said, don't say this to Hanna because I don't want to hurt her feelings. Here I am on a public podcast saying it to you, but I know that you can handle it. And of course, she didn't mean any offense by it. But I guess the way that my mom does it is like she has the dough on the counter, puts the rice in, and then like folds it up. And then she's like, she just has this image of you've got it like in your hand, and you got the rice in there, and you're like, and you just do it differently. And so my mom was just like hysterically laughing. And but I know you won't take offense by this. But I thought it was interesting that like she's like, don't say this to Hanna because I don't want to discourage her from making these or wanting to make these with me. And I'm thinking to myself, Mom, it's not going to offend Hanna, and if anything, she'll just laugh about it.
Yeah, that's funny. I did not know that I have a unique way of creating the Finnish pastries. And yeah, I look forward to next time and I'll observe her technique to learn even better. Like you said, surrounding myself with more advanced piraka makers.
That's it. That's it. It's like finding those people that do things. And another thing, we've been every day here. It's winter in Canada. The ice is frozen over. Each morning, my brother, myself, and our neighbor Steve Miller, we meet down at the ice hole and do a dip. And it's just such a nice way to start the day. And here's a principle, something to consider. Steve's turning 70 this year, and he's like, he rows, he golfs, he plays hockey.
So this is a neighbor that Jack is describing right now.
He's a neighbor, yeah, a very active guy. Does he take the money and run? Oh, Sue. Sue knows. Sue knows. Oh, Stu knows the Steve Miller Band. So one thing that Steve said, he's doing this thing where it's called doing a decathlon for the century. And what it means, a decathlon is 10 events, right? And a century is 100 years. So in order to live a quality lifestyle for 100 years, what he was told was to choose 10 activities that you enjoy and just keep doing them your entire life. Do them for the whole 100 years. Don't give up on them in your 40s or 50s or 60s or whatever. And so, his are like rowing is one, and I'm going to forget them all right now. But he like definitely rowing and golfing and biking and curling and hockey and these kind of things. And just finding these activities that we enjoy doing and keeping them up consistently over time. And that's appears to be the secret. I mean, he's 70 and he's doing better than most 70-year-olds that I know. So what do you think, Anna?
I wonder if line dancing counts.
I bet you it could. I bet it's not like, yeah, of course it could. Yoga could count. Weightlifting could count. I think anything moving our body, and it's good to have variation as well. I should be telling myself this because I'm really good at, bringing discipline, doing the same thing over and over. But bringing variation is super valuable. So with that, I guess I'm mindful. I just have like so many things that I'm excited to update on. I'll just briefly share. I did go last week to Toronto, and because it's the every couple of years I go for a health follow-up. It's 11 years ago that I had been diagnosed with cancer. Great gratitude, gracefully continue to be cancer free, and I went for an ultrasound. Like that was a test because I prefer not to do CT scan. The CT scan has more radiation. They can get what they need from the ultrasound. And so when I'm like laying on the table there as the, whatever the practitioner is doing the ultrasound, and I was just like, I'm like, oh, this is how they check for babies, right? And she's like, yep, no babies. I just couldn't stop laughing. Yeah. So
I'm glad you're pregnant, Happy Jack.
no, I'm not. I'm not. But yeah, I'm grateful to share that health continues, and I think it's a result of. I'll tell you what. I mean, it's all, of course, all of the health things, the yoga, the nutrition, the movement, all of that, and I think that stress, limiting the amount of stress we have. And I think we've talked seriously about this with the community, with Sarah and George and others who, some of us are wired to work hard and to be achievers and to succeed. And when we can find ways not just to put more into our lives, or more commitments and more pressure to do all of these healthy things, but finding ways to reduce stress, or doing things like Yoga Nidra, restorative yoga, mindful walks, whatever it happens to be, to reduce that. Because I'm convinced that the reason that I did end up getting cancer 11 years ago was from a high pressure, high stress, high demand that I put on myself, whether it's the corporate environment or whatever it was. And so, in addition to all of the things we do lifestyle wise as yogis, finding ways to reduce stress. And it can be easier said than done because, some people have legit financial stress, relationship stress, health stress, that all of the core areas of our lives. It can be easy to get caught up in that. So that's my prayer, my wish for all of you, for all of us, is to, and not that we can eliminate stress, but that is one thing I love about yoga, is that it helps us to navigate it. Just a little bit more grace, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more compassion, because stress is a natural part of life, and then it's how we respond to it that matters.
Right. Isn't it so that your mom advised you to try yoga because of
Yeah,
stress in the first place? Like that's how yoga came into your life to manage stress. And I was also thinking about while you were talking, I was thinking about how Tony Robbins, doesn't he say that stress is the achiever word for anxiety,
for fear.
for fear?
Yeah, or
And
anxiety. Yeah, sure.
yeah, because I think like stress means like sometimes we have higher levels of stress or anxiety. Sometimes stress can feel like anxiety, or it can be anxious thoughts that we think, oh, that's stress. I'm stressed about this, that, and the other. Maybe we're worried. There's some fear around things we're navigating, and like we can start to notice what circumstances make us more kind of available for stress. So it could be if we didn't sleep well, or if we have relationship troubles, or if finances are uh, troubling us kind of like on a level that's kind of ongoing for a long time, then we might react and respond negatively to stress. And yes, we can do yoga and we can do therapy. You know, therapists are here to help us change or create change or sustain change or learn new ways to deal with stress, anxiety, fear. That could be just a transition, like a period, right? Kind of like bad weather. Sometimes the winter isn't as usual. It's more wet and it rains more, or the opposite goes to minus degrees for extended periods of time, but then the ice will melt eventually. And like you said, it is about how we navigate those transitions of high intensity, which stress is,
Yeah.
right? And I think many of us come to yoga as like the first tool for self-help in alleviating our own inner pressures, because that's what stress is. It's like a pressure from inside that could feel from like it's coming from the outside, but really I am the common denominator. It is how I respond to it and how resilient I am, or how flexible I can be in the face of these demands and this process of change that we are in constantly. We're constantly becoming, we're constantly changing, adapting, maturing, right? And there's so many ways that we can navigate what you call stress. And also like it's a natural response to pressures that are natural in life. It's part of the human experience is, and like you said about your cancer diagnosis, it like maybe that was, you can look back at your life, how stress was kind of building for so many years in your life in so many ways. And maybe you looking back, you can see that that was like a pivotal moment where like so much stress was culminating like a mountain, and then tipping point happened when you got the diagnosis and you got to reorganize everything and reevaluate. And not that all stress was gone, like maybe for the moment, because you responded very creatively to your diagnosis, but managing the diagnosis, you still do that. You still balance that in your life, right? You go for checkups in ways that feels kind of soothing and helpful to you. And this way you can balance it all better, right? If you
Yeah.
look at that moment, like before and after your diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice when we can find something meaningful or something purposeful from those circumstances that we wouldn't wish upon anybody. I wouldn't wish cancer upon anybody. You wouldn't wish becoming a widow upon anybody. And yet from those unexpected adversities, actually so many gifts can come from that, right? And I think, at least for me, the yoga practice has helped me to be able to extract and to, be able to receive the gifts from it, versus get caught up in the understandable, overwhelm and emotions and all of that stuff.
100%. And you were talking about Mrs. B saying about wisdom here. Like that's where wisdom comes from. The struggles that we go through, and our amount of wisdom is directly related to how willing we are to go through the process in an honest, embodied, reflected, deep way. And that's exactly where great friendships, self-help therapists, yoga can help enhance the takeaway of the deepest crisis that we go through. Like in the Finding Joe documentary, we learned that the Chinese symbol for danger is the same as, or crisis is the same as opportunity.
Yeah, the word for crisis can mean danger and opportunity,
Yeah.
right? So both, yeah, crisis. We might assume is that, oh, that's like a negative thing. That's what we want to avoid. But actually, feeling that pressure of crisis, there's an element of danger, but there's also an element of opportunity. And now we choose, what do we focus on?
Yeah. And if we choose to use the problems in our lives for depth of, you know, knowledge and wisdom, if we use our challenges, that the cards that we've been dealt,
Mhm.
to develop wisdom, then the opportunity is there, because it doesn't automatically, I think it has to be a conscious choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the beautiful thing is, as we do this work on ourselves, because we're all on our own personal journey, our life journey, our spiritual journey, and as we work on ourselves, well, we're going to attract like-minded, valued type of people into our life. And in fact, yesterday, in between, this was like back to back, from the ice hole to the line dancing to a therapy appointment and then to the CrossFit class. But so in there, I squeezed in therapy for 45 minutes, and it was a busy morning. And it was actually just really nice just talking with my therapist Tanya about relationships. Again, just kind of, it's not something I actually haven't thought about it for weeks, but anytime I sit with her, we get to really talk about some of the bigger questions in life and kind of what's next. So again, we're kind of thinking about like, well, what do I want to do after, not just what do I want to do, but who are the kind of people that I want to be associating with? Of course, my family. Of course, I'm going to be here in Muskoka and have association with family and loved ones. And when it comes to peers and friends and yogis, like, where do I want to be? A big part of it is the yogis who are here live with us, being here with all of you. And she had a couple of really nice distinctions, that I wanted to share. So one thing she said is like, but actually when talking about like eventually finding a partner, she kind of said something we can all get, but she's like, well, where would you want to be found? Like, would you, do you want to be found at a bar, or do you want to be found at an ashram or at a yoga retreat or a kirtan or a gym? What are the kind of environments? Where is the kind of place that nourishes you? And she also kind of said, it was interesting, what are the environments that you glow in, that you come alive in, that you have energy in, right? Because we probably all have certain circumstances, environments where maybe we feel a little bit contracted, a little bit constricted. We can't fully be ourselves. Sometimes that may be with family, that may be in work environments. And then there's other places where it's just like, this is amazing. I can just be me. I can be free. I can express myself. There's no judgment. I'd like to think that this community we've created this together as a space like that. But thinking about, those types of environments, and and then she said this term, which I think could be taken out of context. So I want to explain it. I guess that Srila Prabhupada, one of the yogis who brought Bhakti Yoga from India to the West, he had this short, succinct phrase, and it goes, first deserve, then desire. And so again, we could get tripped up on, oh, like deserve. Does that mean like I'm unworthy, or like I've got to earn my worth? It's not like that. But kind of the idea is like, first deserve, first let's do the work on ourselves. Let's become the person. If we want to attract somebody, let's become that person. Let's do the work on ourselves, whatever that looks like for each of us, because it's completely unique and different. And then as we've done that work on ourselves, then have that desire or that calling, that seeking. And I like that idea because I think sometimes it can go the reverse, right? It's like we go seeking for the person to fill the void, we to fill that missing component, but we haven't done the work on ourselves. So I don't know, I think it could be taken out of context, but I get the essence of it, of essentially working on ourselves, becoming the person who we want to be, of the people that we want to attract into our lives.
100%. And it makes me think of what happened to me in Italy uh, a year and a half ago-ish, in the fall, a year and a half ago, kind of. And I was in a monastery in Tuscany. Of course, it was like the perfect picturesque reality. Can't even imagine. Like it seems like a movie set, but real. And in this monastery, there was a church, and the church was empty, and there was like this golden yellow light that came from everywhere, and a huge empty kind of room. And then at the end of it, there was some little stairs where you go down, because the Catholics like to keep like relics, like parts of past wisdom people, monks and saints in their churches. So I assume that was like a place like that there would keep something like that. And I went down there because I was just pulled to go in there. I don't know why. I'm not Catholic. I have not, like, I don't know. I do have some feelings for Catholic systems because I lived in Italy many years, and I lived in a convent myself as a teenager because I lived away from home, but I'm not Catholic in any way. But I felt this pull to go into this church and into this cave under the church, and the whole place was glowing with this beautiful yellow light. And then they had put a prayer in this cave, and it said something. It was such a magical moment, like, like a movie, like a moment of like whisk, where you whisked into a different reality and blessed somehow. And in that moment, I remember reading the prayer on the wall, and it said something similar to what you're sharing about um, deserve and desire. And I remember that it said that dedicate yourself to the kind of love that would be at the, how can I say this without making it sound like again out of context, but that would inspire God's glory, so that it would be at the vibrational level. I understand it as a divine way of loving. And like, and to me, when I hear you say deserve then desire, it's like it felt like that to me. Very similar words, that the way that I want to love somebody and the relationship that I want to be in, um, I would want it to be so pure and beautiful that it would be of that type of caliber, of that type of potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess that's how I took it. She also said, kind of in a line with this, she said that, maybe in my karma, or in my destiny, you could say, there is a partner for me, but I'm not qualified yet. And again, that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm not worthy or I'm terrible. It's like, oh, actually, I'm growing. I'm still in the process of growing into the person I need to become, to be on that vibrational level, to actually to attract and meet that person. So of course that person is out there. They've been born, they exist. They're somewhere in the world. But I love that idea of And again, like I'm not, I said to her as well, I'm not like on some hunt. I'm really not in any hurry at all. But I feel that that is in my future, and that's a nice way of thinking of it. It's like, hey, I'm working on myself. I'm purifying myself. I'm waking up. I'm progressing on my spiritual path, and eventually, I'll be at a place where I'm on that energetic, whatever vibrational level, and it just, the universe, Krishna, God, Jesus, whoever, all of the above will present that interaction, that meeting. Um, but I like that idea of seeing it through that lens.
Yeah, and like there's a deeper yearning inside of all of us um to come together in a mutual recognition of pure, intimate, healing love. Because we
Mm.
do heal relationally. There is a reason for us to have this yearning to share our lives with somebody. So I love that.
Yeah, actually, the reason it came up that I brought it up with her, I was talking with a friend of ours, someone we know from India, and and he was saying, he's like, Jack, um, people who seem to do well on their bhakti path, on their spiritual path, they tend to have three things figured out in life, and one of them is they've identified a teacher or a path, like they're on, a specific path, and they're not just like whimsically, dabbling, and it's okay to try different things, but eventually, becoming serious about a particular path and was the first thing. And then the second thing was to have some way of sharing with others, some vocation, some service, some contribution. For us, we have a yoga community, so it's great. Like that's no problem. Got that figured out. And from his perspective, and this is not like grounded in Shastra texts or anything, but this is his perspective. And he said the third thing, people tend to do well when they're in partnership. And of course, there's examples of monks, right? That's like unique and that's a different path. But for those of us who are in the material world, they, again, his perspective, I'm not saying it's grounded in ancient texts, but his perspective is that those who have a partner, and he's a very enthusiastic guy. So he then starts texting me after the phone call. He's like, "Would you be interested in someone with kids?" And I'm like, I think he's like trying to play matchmaker, and I'm like, we can. I'm like, I'm okay right now. I appreciate your enthusiasm, because I feel it's going to happen naturally. But anyways, what do you, and I think that's something probably at least some of those three you would agree with, because that's something you valued, is that partnership. Of course, there are examples, there are outliers of monks, of people on different paths, but I can see the value, and then actually Dunya, my therapist, she acknowledged that and received that, and also said that even if it's not like intimate partner, just the value of relationships. Like it's so important to have good friends, good people that you can confide in and open your heart and just really deeply connect with. And we see that, yeah, we see that in this community. And is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, like I think about it as in so many ways, like yes, connection and loneliness pandemic and all of that like aligns with our deep need of connection and coming together. But then also I'm thinking about it just relationally. Like, yes, we are group animals. We are raised by a mother most of the time. We take as human beings, we need a lot of years before we're able to go into the world and do what we need to do. But I'm thinking about the power of mutual recognition when that's what connection is. That means that we can sit here together in this Zoom room and discuss these things and together have insights and share them with each other and witness each other have insights. And that's what the power of mutual recognition is. Like imagine the healing power of it. Because we could all sit by ourselves and have all kinds of realization, but we can't wait to come together and share it with each other. That's kind of the nature of humanity in a way. And of course, this type of connection, we have so many ways to connect, so many different relationships where we connect to different extents, right? We need connection with ourselves. We need connection with our peers. We need people like you were talking about earlier who maybe inspire us, who are maybe they've figured things out and we're learning from them and we're becoming better and making those insights and those recognitions guided by someone who's maybe more advanced on whatever path we're talking about, whether it's business or spirituality. But the power of us having insights together, recognizing truth together. Like in Buddhism, it wouldn't it be the Sangha? It's like the one of the three jewels, the foundations of Buddhism is community. And that we don't do as well if we don't have that. I can see that being deeply true.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. It's like I don't know. I mean, that's something I'm grateful for the relationships we have in this community. Many of them are on the call here live with us, and the people we get to meet with several times a week. It's a beautiful thing when you can connect and open your heart and share what's, just share openly and share similar values and be seeking similar kind of growth areas. It's a beautiful thing. And then of course the whole point, as Picasso said last week, we established like the whole purpose is then to give it away, to share it with others. And I just want to briefly share, because I think this can be helpful. As I share something, I want us to all be listening to this for ourselves in our teaching, in our speaking. But I did this past semester. I did that course on the preaching and public leadership. So I was giving a speech every week, and I had done that final sermon which I shared here, and kind of shared like all of my stories and like bared everything, deepest darkest secrets. Like I just laid it all on the line, and I loved it. I think I think I rocked it. And then I shared on one of the podcasts several episodes ago how I could tell the students in the class weren't used to that level of sharing. But anyways, I just got the feedback now from the professor, and I got my grade, got an A, yes. But she gave me feedback, and so in Can-I fashion, she started with what I do well, and then she gave some, growth opportunities. And so I want to share this, not to, highlight myself, but for us to think about, things that work and things to consider as we share our stories, as we weave them into our yoga classes, our workshops, our different offerings. So she emailed me on the weekend, and she said, so I'm just skipping to this section. She said, "One thing I noted in your final sermon was the pulling together of many stories you had told in other assignments in class. I think there's both a positive and a pitfall in sharing personal stories, often as a public speaker. First, the positive. So which you embody with excellence. You have an ease and a comfort in speaking personally and openly. Your face is open. You make great eye contact. Your shoulders and neck are at ease. Your hand motions underscore your words, and you demonstrate self-acceptance and lack of shame, which draws listeners in. You know your story inside and out, so listeners feel swept, carried along in the tale. You have a talent for figuring out what scope of your story you can tell in any given amount of time, which is a great skill to have. Being able to approach 5 minutes or 30 minutes and know exactly how much narrative detail you can offer in that time is something more public speakers need." Now, so that's the positive. The pitfall of the repeated personal narrative, which I want you to work to avoid, is coming off glib or too surfacey when sharing your story. Sometimes giving the top level headline about what for many would be a huge trauma can leave listeners like, huh? Or, you are able to speak about these things because you have processed them well. But your listener may be struggling with big feelings about addiction or becoming unhoused or divorcing. And listing those elements in a quick things I've overcome may actually alienate your listeners instead of bringing them in. One other bit of feedback, which is about the integration of internal self with public self and how that is perceived in public leadership. When we repeat our stories a lot as lessons for others, sometimes we forget to keep revisiting their meaning for us. The meaning you derive from your experiences will, over the course of your life, be more complex than an Aesop's fable with a simple, unchanging motto. It might be that in 5 years, after other experiences, you're now a different person. And that story you told 100 times transforms in your mind and heart into a new meaning, a new lesson for both you and your listeners. I encourage you to keep revisiting the meaning of your stories and keep considering when you might dive deep into one story with a little more detail instead of the whole journey with only the top level of detail. And final sermon, grade A. You're a great public speaker with a lot of heart, warmth, and care for your listeners. It's been a pleasure and privilege to hear about your journey. Look forward to hearing how you continue to bring your spiritual leadership to the wider world. Stay in touch. So it's a really nice feedback with like the positive, kind of reinforcing and specific, right? This is what we encourage in the 200-hour hero's journey. Not just, oh, you're amazing, that was awesome, but like some specific examples of like, here's what you do well, and here's some things to consider. So there's a whole lot in that. Any thoughts, anything stand out to you, Hanna, for us to consider as yoga teachers, things to be mindful of, or if there was even something specific in there that, because you know me personally, that you want to highlight, but what stood out?
Well, I think like to try to make that relatable to somebody else who's a yoga teacher, that could be a little bit of a big jump because not everybody is going to share as much personal things as you do. So I'd rather kind of focus on what the feedback was for you and what you hear in it, in that you were encouraged to look for new meaning in a story that you've told many, many times. How does that, like, what do you hear in that for yourself? What does that mean to you? Like, how can you see yourself do that, or,
Yeah.
and what would
Yeah.
that look like?
Well, for sure, because even as I think about many stories that I've told many times, it's like sometimes I can lose the emotion and lose the feeling. Like I was thinking about just while we were talking earlier, because you brought it up. My mom, the reason I took to yoga was because my mom recommended it to me. And so I've shared, 100 times that, my mom recognized that I was, burning out and stressed out in the corporate environment, and she recommended yoga or meditation. And so, I gave it a go. And I've just told that story so many times, but actually I'm disconnected from the moment of that conversation. Like I almost can't really remember it anymore. I know it happened, because it was the start of the story, and I've shared it with my mom. But I guess I'm aware that sometimes from telling stories over and over so many times, I can get disconnected from the moment. And I do know when things are more fresh, navigated, but still kind of more present and more visceral in my body, there's more emotion, there's more conviction, more connection to the story. So I think one thing I can take away is to really connect to the story, not just tell the story entertainingly, but actually like really feel it and feel what it might have felt like. But to your question about kind of reevaluating the meaning, yeah, I mean, I acknowledge that there probably is, even at the time that I came up with the initial meaning, I'm sure I could have dug deeper And certainly now at a different stage in life, I'm sure there's new meaning that I can, take from that. I guess, I mean, not as an excuse, but it's kind of like my life is just so full. Doesn't mean it's good or amazing, but it's just full. The schedule is full. And so I'm just kind of always kind of managing the present moment, managing what I'm going through. So there hasn't, at this stage of life, midlife, there's not currently as a student a lot of time for reflection. But I can see the value in it, and I'd love to have more time. And so that's something I can look forward to in the new year when I finish school.
Yeah. What are some of your New Year's practices? Are you doing something in terms of intentions or things like that?
I'm actually inspired by Sarah and George who are on here. They've made a one pager because I can complicate things. You know that, Hannah. I'm an engineer. I can make things complex. And if I start thinking about what I want to accomplish in 2025, I could write pages and pages and spreadsheets and lists and so I want to get to the essence, like a one pager. And so I've just been capturing notes in my phone. And so whether I'll do some of it today and New Year's Eve, and I'll do some tomorrow, and it doesn't have to be the exact date. It'll be this week. Just kind of working on putting that one pager together, and just bringing clarity to what I want to focus on, what I want to prioritize, and what's next in 2025. So that's one thing.
Hmm. Is there going to be like one word or one sentence or one intention that you're going to carve out? Or what's that going to look like?
Not necessarily. It sounds like it might be for you.
Well,
You have one?
I do, but like for me, I think simplicity works really well because then I can kind of
Mm.
remember that throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is what I set out for. This is what I'm practicing. This is, kind of like a reminder to make it easier to, in the moments of stress, is when we forget oftentimes what we wanted to create. And I think that um, there's so many things we cannot control. Like life will bring stress to us, like we were talking about stresses and all kinds of pressures that can naturally show up as a result of participating in life. And then it's in those moments that um, it's easy to forget what we actually would love to contribute with or practice when things get busy. Like you said, your daily life is so busy. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of opportunity to reevaluate or have deep reflections or insights and recognitions. And so to kind of like navigate towards something, I think it can be good to have some clarity and maybe a word or a sentence or a sensation that we can kind of remember to come back to. Kind of like a drishti, like we say in yoga, like the where you set your gaze is where you're gonna go,
Mhm.
right?
North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind as I do New Year's reflections. But I'm super excited. I want to be mindful and wrap this up. We can stay on time. A couple of things that I'll just briefly share. But I mean, so super. I mean, or just one thing, I guess. Super exciting. Very soon, details will be announced of our summer retreat in the USA. I know we got some Europeans or on. That'll happen eventually as well. But we'll just say it right now. It's going to be June 6th through the 9th in West Virginia. Details very soon. Again, similar to India, like super cost effective, super affordable, and a beautiful way and limited space. But we'll be reaching out to community in advance to let you know. But this is it, Hannah. 2024 in the wraps. We're here. I will be doing a bit of traveling later in January, but we're still here together next episode, so we can share more about that then. But friends, thank you so much for being here. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're catching this. Thank you for being a part of the journey. Make it an amazing rest of the day. Namaste.
Happy New Year. Namaste.